Hello, dear students. Let us discuss a poem from Hornbill textbook. Poem 1, A Photograph. This poem is written by Shirley Tulson. Let us see the introduction. The poem Photograph is written by Shirley Tulson. In this poem, she recalls her mother and her memories. While looking at a childhood photograph, when her mother was 12 years old or so. She has been deceased 12 years ago and she cannot explain her grief on her mother's loss. Now, the explanation we'll see for the first 4 lines. The cardboard shows me how it was. When the two girl cousins went paddling. Each one holding one of my mother's hands, and she the big girl, some 12 years or so. Now the word paddling means walking. In these lines, the poet is looking at an old photo album which is made up of cardboard. In the picture, there are 3 girls who are walking on the beach holding each other's hands. The girl in the middle is the tallest and oldest. The other 2 girls on each side are younger than her. The girl in the middle is the poet's mother. She is around 12 years old when the picture was taken. Line number 5 to 9. All 3 stood still to smile through their hair at the uncle with the camera. A sweet face, my mother's, that was before I was born. And the sea, which appears to have changed less, washed their terribly transient feet. Now, transient means short-term or temporary. In the above lines, the poet describes how the photograph was taken. Her mother's uncle took the photograph and told them to stop and pose. All 3 of them left their wet hair open and smiled at the camera. The poet's attention is drawn towards mother's face, which is described as a sweet face. The photograph was taken long before the poet was born. The poet calls their feet terribly transient as they were so young by then and now they had grown older. On the other hand, the sea which touched their feet has changed less. Line 10 to 13. Some 20-30 years later, she would laugh at the snapshot. See Betty and Dolly, she would say. And look how they dressed us for the beach. The sea holiday. Snapshot means photograph. After 20-30 years later, she would laugh at the photograph. She would tell me to look at her cousins, Betty and Dolly, and how their parents would dress all 3 of them up for the beach. They would have planned to take a photograph beforehand. Line number 14 to 15. Was her past, mine is her laughter. Both rye with the labored ease of loss. Rye, that is ironic expression, mocking we can say. Now here the poet recalls the sea holiday, which was her mother's favorite moment from the past. While the poet's favorite moment from the past was her mother's laughter. Both the women would think about those past memories which they cannot live again. They tried their best to adjust to what they lost. Line number 16 to 19. Now she has been dead nearly as many years as that girl lived. And of this circumstance, there is nothing to say at all. It's silence silences. How beautiful the line is. Silences here means a complete absence of sound. Now let's talk about those lines in detail. In the above lines, the poet says that her mother died 12 years ago, the same age her mother was in the photograph. Whenever the poet thinks of her mother's death, she cannot explain what effect she has on her mother's death. Death has silenced her mother and which has also left her speechless. So the silence or the absence of mother has brought all sorts of silence in the poet's life. Let us talk about the literary devices. Alliteration, that is the repetition of a consonant sound at the beginning of two or more consecutive words. The instances of alliteration in the poem are as follows: stood still, through there. In the first pair, sound s is repeated. Through there, sound th is repeated. My mother, mo sound is repeated. Terribly transient, sound t is repeated. Silence, silences, sound s is repeated. Oxymoron. An oxymoron is a figure of speech that has two contradictory or opposite words appearing side by side. So basically, it's a combination of two words that really have opposite meanings, but we use them. They are used for creating some certain effects by the poet. For example, labored and ease. Labor doesn't go with, ease, and ease doesn't go with the labor or the efforts. So both these concepts or ideas are contradictory, but still they both are together. Okay, they are appearing side by side. So here the poetic device is oxymoron. Then the next one is epithet. Let me introduce a new poetic device. A transferred epithet is a little known but often used figure of speech in which a modifier, usually it's an adjective, qualifies a noun other than the person or thing it is actually describing. Please try to understand, okay, that adjective qualifies a noun other than the person or thing it actually is describing. In other words, the modifier or epithet is transferred from the noun it is meant to describe and it is given to another noun in the sentence. For example, terribly transient. So here we come to know that transferred epithet is a poetic device which is used by the poet. Here, when he talks about the terribly transient feat, he is actually talking about the nature of the life which never remains the same. Thank you so much.